The young man stands poised between two worlds. One he knew as a child in the Caucasus Mountains, another he's building in Istanbul. He is Ottoman by birth and subject by chance. Born in the shadow of the Byzantine Empire, he grew up speaking Greek. But the world he's entering belongs to the Turkish language. It's a world of Islam, of Ottoman identity and the allure of a vast domain stretching from Budapest to Baghdad. The walls of Istanbul, once Constantinople, are his boundary and his horizon. His father is Janissary, a member of the elite military corps that guards the Ottoman Sultan. But that identity meant little in the city's teeming streets. In this melting pot of cultures, religion and language are potent markers, but they're not constant. They shift and intertwine. For example, many Muslims in the Ottoman Empire spoke Turkish, just as many Christians spoke Arabic. Loyalty, he learns, isn't about identity, it's about performance. It's about demonstrating obedience and commitment. The Sultan's court, this intricate dance of power, expects him to master a new language, shed his old one, abandon the traditions of his Armenian roots and replace them with the customs of his new Muslim identity. He must navigate a minefield of customs, beliefs, and behaviors, always watching for signs of slippage. Can he hope to succeed in this world without forgetting the past entirely? To make his way in Istanbul, he must absorb its ways, and yet, in doing so, he risks losing himself. His dilemma is a microcosm of the empire's grand ambition to rule such a vast realm. The Ottoman Turks sought to govern not just over lands and resources, but over the hearts and minds of diverse peoples. How did they manage to hold together such disparate parts? The answer, paradoxically, lies in letting go, by embracing the multiplicity of their subjects while simultaneously shaping them in their image. The Ottomans created a complex, almost contradictory system of inclusion and transformation. Imagine growing up in the mountains of Georgia, far from the bustling bazaars and palaces of Istanbul. Your life revolves around your family, your village, your traditions. But one day, everything changes. You are summoned to the capital to serve the Sultan. As you journey across the empire, you encounter people who, like you, have been uprooted and transformed. These men, known as Janissaries, form a tight-knit community bound by their shared experiences. They take on new names, shedding their pasts like snakeskin, and the language they speak, Ottoman, Turkish, becomes a badge of their allegiance. Your life as a Janissary is a world of contrasts. While you receive a prestigious education, mastering subjects from theology to mathematics, you also learn the art of war, practicing with weapons, honing your skills as a fighter. Your days are filled with rigorous training, your nights with the camaraderie of your fellow soldiers. But as you rise through the ranks, you face moral dilemmas. Loyalty to the Sultan becomes paramount, even if it means betraying your own people. You're caught between two identities, the one you left behind and the one you've been molded into. Your story is a testament to the adaptability of individuals, the lure of opportunity, and the complexities of navigating a world reshaped by conquest and change. Your journey reflects the essence of the Ottoman Empire, an empire that thrived on cultural exchange and transformation while maintaining a distinct identity. We began by talking about the Sultan's court. Let us now introduce the Sultan's wife. She enters the harem not as a girl from the mountains, but as property, spoils of war and conquest. Her story starts in the Caucasus, a region far from the grandeur of Istanbul, where she lived with her father and brothers. Life there was peaceful, but one day their world is shattered by the arrival of the Ottomans. The familiar turns unfamiliar. Her house is ransacked, her father humiliated, and before she knows it, she's marching toward Istanbul, the prize of victory. The Sultan's court is a gilded cage. She's surrounded by luxury, but at what cost? The freedom to move, to speak, to love is gone. She is assessed like a commodity, her value determined by her beauty and youth. But she's not alone in this gilded prison. Other women brought from distant lands share her fate. They form a community of captives, each holding on to fragments of their past, speaking languages that echo across the miles. Over time, she sheds her old life, learning new customs, mastering Ottoman, Turkish, and Islam. Her Georgian roots fade, replaced by the rituals of the harem. One day, she finds herself at the center of attention, the Sultan's choice, a bride chosen not for love, but for her ability to produce heirs. She navigates the delicate balance of the imperial court, bearing children, playing the role of wife, all the while guarding the secrets of her past. As I've told you this history, I've done my best to make it immediate, to locate beats in it where you might have placed your own life. A village in the mountains, a courtyard in the city, a ride on a long caravan. Because how could such grandeur have been made? The scale of the Ottoman Empire staggers the mind. Its foundations were laid with walls, its expanse measured with sieges and time, but its true magnitude is revealed through the lives of individuals caught in its relentless churn. The boy sent from the countryside to become a soldier, the girl taken from the mountain village to grace the Sultan's court. Their journeys illustrate the essence of the empire, a tapestry woven with threads of conquest, cultural exchange, and the relentless pursuit of power. The pulse of this empire is found in the subtle ways it reshaped lives, altered identities, and echoed across generations. If you feel the weight of those unseen forces, if you sense the echoes of lives lived and lost, then I've done my job tonight. History is not just about dates and battles. It's about understanding the world we live in today by exploring how we got here. Thank you for walking this path with me. And as you leave, remember, the past is never gone. It's all around us if we know where to look. So we cross a threshold from taking children to converting men into instruments through alteration, proximity, and rule. Imagine a chain of stations along desert roads and river bends where arrivals are counted, losses noted, and the next step decided by a supervisor with a quill. Think of mortality not as accident but as a forecast baked into prices. From certain regions, a portion will falter before they reach the city. From others, the first culling happens in the place where bodies are prepared for palace or household or administration. Records survive that convert this cruelty into columns. Purchase costs, transport, risks, fees paid, resale gains. It feels obscene to call it an industry, yet the paperwork refuses any other name. Do not search here for sensational detail. The method's essence is the logic, not the gore. Render a person unable to form a private lineage and you convert his devotion entirely into public service. Combine that with literacy, arithmetic, trusted access, and you have the perfect steward, present at thresholds where wealth and power live, but unable to found a dynasty that might rival the one he serves. The death rate is not a flaw to be corrected. It is tolerated attrition. The few who survive are rare, expensive, dependable. In such an economy, tragedy is not a deterrent, it is a filter. From the south and east come long files of captives who will be sorted, some for labor too heavy to last, some for training that makes a tool of the mind, some for roles that watch over hidden chambers and treasure rooms. From the north and west come others selected in different ways, valued for different reasons, across the sea, across the dunes, across mountain passes. They travel to ports and markets with names we still speak: Cairo, Damascus, Basra, Cordoba, where architecture glows while the human cost remains shadowed in courtyards and side streets. The contradiction is complete. Beauty above, ledgers below, domes that catch the sun, and rooms where the sunlight is never allowed. In this same era, a revolt teaches the empire a lesson it will not forget. In marshlands heavy with salt and heat, laborers forced into impossible work rise up, and for years they seize ground, hold cities, build a You can feel the tremor this sends through the administrative heart. After that, surveillance tightens, commanders adjust. Rebellions are treated not as aberrations but as scenarios to be modeled and prevented. The outcome is crushing, and the memory is managed. Yet the echo lingers, a reminder that even the most perfected system encounters those moments, when the human refuses to be only a unit of output. Shift now to the roots themselves, because the landscape is a co-conspirator. The Sahara is not simply a backdrop, it is an instrument, a crossing with few wells and many risks. There's a corridor where the weak become losses and the survivors arrive worth more. You will encounter reports that list expected attrition as calmly as they list caravan loads. You will hear of waterholes ringed with bones, of waypoints that are both lifelines and judging posts. The ocean routes mirror this: monsoons, reefs, currents that aid or ruin a voyage. Every geography that should inspire awe becomes a test that some are not meant to pass. And yet the markets flourish because they do not require every traveler to arrive, only enough. The prices adjust upward to cover those who fell. The demand persists for soldiers and porters, clerks and guards, attendants and intermediaries. The paradox sharpens. The same institutions that sponsor learning, translate science and cultivate arts also sponsor a trade that treats human breath as freight. Libraries preserve ancient texts, courts debate philosophy, poets refine language, and, not far away, somebody balances a ledger where a life is an entry with a value that changes after a procedure, after a journey, after an inspection. What does that inspection look like? It is clinical, health checked, skills demonstrated, temperament inferred. Those chosen for service at thresholds and are rulers. Treasures and households are assessed for reliability, not just strength. Those chosen for fields and quarries are measured for endurance. Those chosen for inner corridors are assessed for obedience beyond doubt. Every selection uses a rule that discloses a worldview. People are not people but categories that match needs, risks and expected returns. Remember, too, the psychological economy that accompanies the financial one. A child who is separated from his language, a teenager taught to speak so that every new word overwrites an old memory. A man who learns that trust is a narrow bridge, he can walk only in one direction. These are not footnotes, they are the core. Some will rise, yes, some will flourish according to the terms available to them, titles, robes, seals pressed into wax. But watch closely. What was taken at the beginning shapes what can be given at the end. A brilliant steward can be trusted with a vault, yet never with a family. A loyal guard can be admitted to the most private doorways, yet never to a home of his own. The story invites you to feel outrage, and you should, but it also asks for cold-eyed attention. Do not let the heat of horror keep you from seeing structure. A system that expects attrition and monetizes survival will not collapse simply because it is cruel. It will endure because it is efficient. To contest it, one must understand the places where efficiency fails, supply lines that are too long, rebellions that cost more than suppression saved, taxes that provoke conversions that shift the social base. We are approaching those fiscal instruments next, and when you see how numbers turn into pressure, you will recognize a different kind of chain. Before we turn that page, hold on to a single principle. When suffering is turned into a table of expected losses and future gains, memory must work harder. Names will be rare in the records, numbers will be common, narrative will be scarce, inventory plentiful. That is why we tell these stories aloud. To convert again what commerce flattened. To restore possibility where policy wrote only outcomes. I saw you there. Yes, I mean you. I see everything. There's a place I want to take you. Do you trust me? Then come with me. There, do you see it? That tall structure with countless windows like eyes watching all around. Inside, someone is recording. They're writing down your name, listing what you own, how much it's worth, and making notes about who you are. Why do they do this? So that nothing escapes their grasp. Not your harvest, not your coin, not your very breath. Can't hide anything from them. And I found something else here. Look, another place. Do you see that? It's filled with soldiers, weapons, and rows upon rows of empty spaces. Each space is made for a person. Those persons won't be empty for long. Soon they'll fill up, they'll come for you. I can feel their presence even from here. They already know how many goats you own, how many days your food will last, and how many hours you can work before you break. And now they're coming for something else. They're taking your children. Don't worry though. I have a plan. I know a way out. Follow me, hurry. Here, in this house. You will be safe. No one can hurt you here. Look through that window. Can you see those people? Do you see what they're doing? They're planting seeds. One day those seeds will grow into food, and you will eat from the fruit of your labor. It's a fair deal, right? You work the land and keep your distance from everyone. You don't have to pay me. You don't have to pay anyone. You can keep everything you earn. You can build a life here. A good life. You just need to promise me one thing. Do you promise? Good. Shake my hand. And remember this. When you need help, when you need protection, when the time comes, you must come to me. You understand? Very good. But I'm not done yet. I have one last gift for you. See that land over there? The one with the river and the trees? I'm giving it to you. It's yours forever. Your children's children will own it. You can work the land, hunt in the river, and gather fruit from the trees. You can live there too. You might think this is a generous offer, and it is. But really, it's a business transaction. I'm counting on you to do one thing. Bring me grain. As much as you can, as often as you can. You will bring me your surplus, and I will give you seed and tools to plant more crops next year. Does that sound like a deal? In return, I want one thing from you. Promise me you'll stay away from the city. Promise me you won't try to find me. Promise me you'll never ask questions. Deal? Now get out of here. Leave this place and don't look back. Go to your new home. Start a new life. That's it. If you liked this story, you'll probably also like the story we did on consent. Click here to read it. Enter the inner quarters where power rests. Behind curtains and a new set of rules dominates. Procurement documents exist. Inventories exist. The language is crisp, administrative and chilling entries that reduce people to origin, age, condition, and price. These are not fantasies of luxury. These are institutions of control. The perimeter is physical guards, doors, corridors. The perimeter is also legal ownership written as dominion, consent erased by the very definition of property. Within these walls, hierarchies are strict, competition is constant, despair is common. Some are elevated if fortune and favoritism align. More vanish into the daily routine of obedience and surveillance. Ports and markets specialize, responding to tastes that should never be spoken of as commerce. The flow is steady, caravans from steppe and mountain, routes from the Black Sea littoral, desert roads converging on coastal intrepets. Ages cluster in narrow bands because the system prizes those who can be shaped and managed. Origins are assigned premiums according to beauty standards, written nowhere official yet obvious on every page of sales. Some observers who tried to intervene found themselves staring at a legality that shielded the practice. Others recorded what they saw and then spent the rest of their lives trying not to remember it. In the greatest courts, numbers expand. A ruler's compound can hold hundreds, even thousands. Documents show acquisition by lots, vetting by intermediaries, and payments made in sums that make clear how embedded this is in the fiscal heart of a state. Deaths are recorded with the same detachment as purchases. Punishments appear as standard. The words are brief because the bureaucracy does not need adjectives. It needs only proof that procedures were followed. If you listen from the guest quarters, the sound carries. If you write it down, you cipher it. If you are asked later, you say nothing. Consider how such a system interacts with lineage. A child born within may be acknowledged or erased, raised to rank or folded back into servitude, accepted as an asset or treated as a danger. The uncertainty itself is a form of governance. Some families far from the court face a nightmare calculus: how to protect a daughter in a world where demand converts beauty into risk. The lengths to which people go to shelter their children reveal the terror of capture. The songs that survive from those communities carry a grief so deep it passes for myth until you read the corresponding sales ledgers and realize it is history. The geography of trade responds. A stronghold is taken and an entire regional pipeline shifts hands. A steppe is pacified and a port thrives. A coastal city is ringed with new walls, and taxes and fees rise to shield the lucrative exchange that happens beyond them. European emissaries pass through and record markets, where the hum of bargaining is indistinguishable from everyday commerce until you attend to what is being purchased. It is tempting to say this was a different age with different norms, yet within the same centuries there were voices that called it what it was, even if they learned to write those words with their careers and lives in mind. The scale is what finally overwhelms. Years compounded into centuries, ports that operate for generations, households that build entire administrative calendars around acquisition, training, and assignment. There is a straightforward, devastating reason why you do not meet multitudes of descendants. Men were prevented from forming lines. Women were absorbed into places where their children belonged to someone else. Transport and labor killed those who might have carried family memory forward. Diasporas do not form when succession is blocked and breath is short. History without descendants becomes a rumor, then a debate, then a course no department offers. And that brings us to silence as policy, you might ask. If so much is recorded, why is so little taught? The answer has many parts, some as mundane as curriculum inertia, some as dangerous as threats and pressure. Funding shapes departments. Departments shape syllabi. Syllabi shape what a generation reads. Archives require permits. Permits can be delayed. Films need distributors. Distributors need advertisers and governments to be untroubled. A scholar veers to safer topics, not always because the evidence is weak, but because the walls that guard the evidence are high and watched. It is important here to be exact. The claim is not that nothing is written, nor that nobody studies. The claim is that the proportion is wildly skewed, that the topics most likely to be supported are those that do not embarrass living power, and that the ones that would struggle to appear. You can test this with course catalogs, with publication lists, with program budgets. You can test it with the discomfort that surfaces when a proposal includes words the gatekeepers would rather not see in a prospectus. Silence is not absence, it is management. So when the story turns to memory, understand why it must be ordered. If parents and grandparents are gone, if liturgy is all that remains of a tongue, if the users of a script can only guess at a lost pronunciation, then the work of recall shifts to those who are neither descendants nor direct inheritors. You and I become the custodians of what might otherwise fall between library stacks and legal codes. Documentaries never funded and grants never awarded. We become, in effect, the jury still willing to read evidence the world pretends not to see. If you've watched this far, you probably have some questions. We received hundreds of messages asking for clarification after our first episode. People wanted to know, how do you justify spending 14 minutes on a single atrocity committed by a single empire, while ignoring centuries of violence and dispossession elsewhere? Why would you spend a 36-minute episode on trade and tribute when there are conflicts to cover? Why indeed? But we are following the money because everything we have followed thus far, child levies, altered bodies, lethal routes, punitive tax codes, cultural erasures, inner compounds run by paperwork interlocks, each piece feeds another. Soldiers taken as boys later command raids that capture more. Alteration creates attendants whose loyalty is guaranteed by design. Trade corridors monetize attrition. Fiscal policy buys conversions and prevents inheritance. The destruction of libraries, temples, and languages erases witnesses who might one day testify. The inner quarters consume those for whom no public life is permitted. While the bureaucracy keeps its records with impeccable penmanship, our first episode gave you the opening ledger. Now we're walking you through the entries. Hundreds of thousands of children taken across centuries. Millions processed through procedures that most did not survive. Millions more driven across deserts and seas with death rates that read like a verdict. Add those lost to raids that supplied the market, those who died resisting, those never born because their parents were carried away. The sum is not a statistic to memorize, it is a reckoning to feel. It is a slow apocalypse, stretched thin enough to look normal if you refuse to count, and undeniable once you do. We are showing how a system works because systems endure, they change and adapt. They look normal until you examine them closely. And they are always political. Why does such a system endure so long? Because it is adaptive. When open war is expensive, economic pressure does the work. When public memory is inconvenient, curricula are shaped to exclude it. When a law forbids one practice, an outsourcing workaround is invented. When a revolt exposes a weakness, surveillance tightens and the ratios are recalibrated. Efficiency is the true ideology here, not a claim of holiness or heritage, but a quest to keep the machine running. That is what should chill you most, the way cruelty can become logistics, and logistics can become tradition. But you may be wondering if the evidence exists. Archives, legal codes, traveler accounts, diplomatic notes, excavation reports. Why the void in public knowledge? The answers range from the predictable to the perilous. Donors prefer flattering narratives. Institutions avoid topics that threaten relationships. Politicians count votes and oil barrels. Editors protect advertisers. Producers calculate risk. Scholars watch what happens to colleagues who touch electrified wires and decide to publish on architecture instead. None of this requires a grand conspiracy. It only requires incentives aligned against illumination and a little fear. So where does that leave us? With agency. You can read, you can demand courses. You can ask museums why one story has galleries and another a brochure. You can evaluate sources critically and still refuse to accept silence as neutrality. Most of all, you can hold two truths at once: that a civilization can nurture art and science, translate Aristotle and refine algebra, and also run trades and policies that crush lives by the million. Refusing simplified narratives is not an insult to the best in a culture. It is a defense against the worst repeating itself. We understand that many of you also have questions about why we use the word civilization in our title. We chose it deliberately to highlight how what we now call the Islamic world was modern, sophisticated, and culturally rich. It was also deeply unjust. We think it's important to recognize the complexity and contradictions of history, to challenge simplistic narratives, and to avoid the pitfalls of presentism, the tendency to judge the past by today's standards. As Edward Said argued, we must approach historical texts and events with an awareness of the biases and perspectives of the time in which they were produced. We must take into account the intellectual and cultural context of the past and avoid imposing our own values and beliefs onto historical actors and institutions. Doing so allows for a more nuanced understanding of the past and helps us to avoid the pitfalls of judging historical figures and civilizations by today's standards. To learn more about how we think about terminology, you can check out our Building Blocks episode on words. We hope these clarifications are helpful. Remember, absence in the textbook is not absence in the world. And remembering, done well, is a form of justice. If you want more long-form journeys like this, slow, careful, unafraid of the hard parts, stay with us. Keep listening, keep reading, and when the time comes to speak, do not whisper.